Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special episode with the all-new Land Rover Defender. Here today for you with Autogefuel, on-road and off-road. With Thomas in front of the camera, Jonas behind the camera. All the details in exterior, interior and the driving experience. Enjoy this episode together with us in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! So we have two colors for you here today. Here the Pangea Green or the Indus Silver. This new Defender, it does cite something of the past generation, yes, the original model, but you can see it is definitely rounder than before. Also has to do, for example, with pedestrian safety measurements, and the whole model is really completely different. It is 20 centimeters or 8 inches wider. You can already see that here in the front. And the whole concept is different. So no leather frame anymore. This is an aluminum unibody structure, also with an independent suspension and so on. So it's really completely different concept, but still off-road capable. The short wheelbase version is called 90 and it is 4 meters 58 or 180 inches. This one here, however, is the 110 long wheelbase version, 5 meters 02 or 198 inches. And this is the Autogefühl drinking game. From where does Thomas enter the stage? Yes, today from the rear. You can always guess and then play a drinking game with your friends. Enjoy that. Well, but today, of course, with the Land Rover Defender here also in the side profile, you can see here both 110 version, long wheelbase version for you here today. The length I have given you are, by the way, including the spare wheel at the rear. You can also deduct that, then you have a shorter vehicle, so the chassis is not that long actually as it sounds. Here we have this black look. You can see here we also had the black Defender lettering in the front, whereas the other vehicle is rather the brighter look. The shorter 90 version, by the way, is also available with a base steel suspension in Europe if you are in the US, or you go for the longer one, the 110. Air suspension is always standard. However, for off-road use, it's of course even better because you can put the car even higher. Here, the classic replacement tire in the rear. I mean, you could also drive with it demounted, but usually when you buy this vehicle, you want it either for the looks or then for the off-road usage. So whereas all other manufacturers have no logic anymore in their naming system, Jaguar Land Rover put a new logic in there, and it's so simple. 4 cylinders, diesel, D200 or D240, that's also the horsepower count. Here the D240 in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, this symbolizes 4 cylinders. Not everything clean here today, that's also off-roading, guys. And on the other side, we have the petrol fraction. So petrol, either a P300, that's still a 4-cylinder, or than this, the P400. Yeah, you guys in the US will love that. P400, the 6-cylinder petrol engine. Side. You can also put the car lower, by the way, for an access height. For example, you know, if you're a lady and wearing a fancy dress, or if you're guest is wearing a fancy dress, for example. And then of course a bit higher, as we shown you earlier. Well, then seating position, upright, really like a square seating position, and I really like that. So you have a good view all around, and it's actually quite comfortable. Also nice with, we have already the fabric share here that makes it also, you know, a little better that you don't slide on it too much, although the seats are rather open. But also long term, I could really imagine going longer way with this vehicle. This is mainly manual, this seat here in this case, also for pumping up your here. Quality here, for example, the lever is not top notch. I think some parts are really very nicely done, as I said, as you know, some of the fabric surface. Some other things are looking rather a little bit rougher. So it's indeed a mix. Interior overview, a horizontal stress. Here again, the soft touch fabric is really nicely done. Open area here, so this rugged look. Here's another USB supply, for example. 10-inch screen comes standard with a new software that will be also implemented in newer Jaguar Land Rover models. On the left side, however, then you start with analog gauges, optional 12.3-inch instruments. So that's the overview. Here the steering wheel again with this rugged look. The buttons here on the steering wheel do give you some haptical feedback, some kind of, yes. Also have a clicking sound. Volume controller is on the left. On the right side you set the cruise control and also heated steering wheel. Then you have this typical Land Rover layout with a gear shifter that sticks out here somewhat. Climate units, it's still easy to control it also while driving. Push it, for example, for the seat heating. That's a cool system. Here is then also everything you control off-road wise. For example, here pumping car up or down, hill descent control, then the off-road gearing, putting car neutral first, then click this button. And then on the right side, this will get even more interesting. This is then here the terrain select. So you can then choose this here or touch on the screen for the different off-road driving modes. Digital instruments, you can see here left side speed, right side is the RPM meter. And then you can also change what you want to see actually in the middle part. So we can change the layout right here, or also what we want to have as the information. And for example, for the GPS, you can also set to full map, and then you have the GPS map in there. Doesn't look too fancy, does the job. I've seen better software for digital instruments. Into the screen, the software has been updated. Things are easier than before, easier accessible, and with Auto Apple CarPlay is available. Then the GPS looks like this. Everything is more responsive. It's really a better processor unit they've put in here right now. So that's a crucial change if you compare it to, you know, a infotainment system so far. And you see, it doesn't have such a menu depth, so to say. Everything easily accessible. This is the options list, for example. Brightness of the screen. You can also set it right here. And then let's check out the camera view, which is quite impressive. So, you know, the top option you can have, especially when you're off-road. Check out the individual tire. We also see the other Defender next to us. And then you can also have this fake drone from above and actually pick an individual camera wherever you want to see it. This top mirror, either a normal one or then on demand, you can make it a camera. And this is, for example, handy. We see the sandpit behind us, the hard sandpit behind us. This is actually quite cool when you have on the rear everything loaded up that you could not see for real to the rear, but from the outside camera you can still. So this is a nice feature, and especially that you can pick how you want to have it. As for the rear passengers, so this is a bench that goes all the way through. Also we have the nice soft material at the back part of the door, and basically the very same look. So the whole seat setups could be 5, 6 or 7 seats, depending if you have the jump seat in the front and also if you have the additional third seating row. First of all, to the second seating row, and there's a quite handy solution here indeed with, you know, a handrail right there. It's quite cool. Here at the back part we have a USB supply of the seat, and this one would be like for an iPad holder or something. And you can see you really have reasonable space here in the legroom. So this platform is using more space than, for example, the other like high top luxury vehicles they have in the lineup. lot of legroom. This is the driver's seat to my position with 1.86 m or 6'1", and I even forgot in the front about the headroom, because I don't even have to talk about the headroom because there's so much headroom left. So there's not really an issue at all. So upright seating position here, very comfortable, nice, and a lot of space also when I move to the middle seat here. So there's one of the cars where you can very, very well sit in the middle seat. Of course, the car is so high that the off-road transmission tunnel doesn't really interfere with the interior, so that's pretty cool. And also to the seating, no problem at all. Really nice that we also have the bright seating here, and we have these additional windows here on both sides that leave some more light from the top part. So also, of course, a quote of the past model, but you know, some of the nice emotional features, definitely. Well, if you ever wondered why these off-road cars have a sideways opening trunk, well, it is because of the replacement tire that is just too heavy. I mean, imagine flipping that up to the top part or having gas truss that are so strong to do that, so it's easier. And however, it's still a lot of weight on these hinges on the inside, and they are now stronger than before, especially right here, you know, in these areas. So let's see how that one plays out. Very practical trunk here, however, and also with a robust floor, definitely. This soft top cover is, of course, and again, something that has this old school character. You have to deinstall the manual here at the sides, and you know, that's some work. It's not a real practical solution. Again, it's more about quoting the past. Not sure if you just leave it like this then. Here again, you can have a better view. So pretty nice area we have available there. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the all-new Land Rover Defender. Driving here the 3-liter 6-cylinder petrol engine, the P400. Now also with the MHEV, the mild hybrid technology. Let's see if that saves a little bit of the fuel consumption. So we'll start just to roll, and I'll also talk about comparison to other SUVs, comparison to Range Rover or Land Rover models internally. And what I can say is that this rugged off-road feeling is somehow transported already to the road. The Land Rover Discovery comes closer to it, but indeed, not only the layout, but also seating position-wise, the square dimensions and so on, you do get more off-road feeling. Of course, you cannot compare it at all to the previous Defender generation. Completely different cars. The only thing that is shared is the name, nothing else basically. Yeah, and the off-road capabilities, but it's a totally different ride. You cannot really compare it. So indeed, rather to a Discovery, but the Discovery feels more street-ish. And this one indeed, you know, from the whole layout, how you sit and how you see everything, does feel more off-roadish already here in street driving. This car is also mounted with street tires, so we have the good setup actually for the road. When you're in dry off-road situations, it won't make such a difference. Of course, the off-road tires more play a role when you have muddy conditions. We have the air suspension in here, and the good thing is that to normal niveau at the moment, I like cars with air suspension that really say, hello, I'm an air suspension, I'm here, and I'm not anything else, you know, so that you feel the air suspension. And that is still the case with this vehicle. You still feel it is an air suspension, and that's really good. So also when you're going like left and right, you feel the car is shaking up a little bit, but that's in this case, I think, a good thing, because we want to have this off-road character actually. And this also accounts for a good traveling comfort. You have the upright seating position, the air suspension is set on a soft, comfortable note, so that's really cool. And also difference to some Range Rover models, which are more set out to some sportier, you know, in relation on-road driving. So still perfectly suitable for on-road. The steering feeling is, let's say, it doesn't give you like a good connection to the road. It's not so much dead zone area, however, so the commands are transported, but it also has this off-road notion, so you steer more way actually. Off-road, that's really important to keep the car also straight and calm and so on. And I think it's okay that they also transport that to the road. Now, if we look at the competitors, because prices here, as I said earlier, can easily go up to like 80K or something. And then there's really like harsh competition from the outside. Not exactly this concept, with the true off-road character. But yet again, if you just use it on road, then also other competitors play a role. And of course, driving dynamics wise and the quality, of materials on the inside, the whole impression, that is then, for example, better like with the Audi, BMW, Mercedes competition. So this then would be the pick where the character should stand out. And to this respect, I think that this car has a better chance to, let's say, the standard competitors than some of the other models, because it has this unique driving feeling, as I said, more rugged, off-roadish and so on. And this is what it makes it special, so that other aspects maybe count a little bit less. The 8-speed automatic gearbox, by the way, is doing a great job, so very smooth transitions between the gears. You can also put it to the so-called sport mode, by the way, then the gears are turned up higher, so it will help the acceleration even more. And also when you're, for example, going down and using the engine brake a little bit more. However, this one here, as an MHEV, maybe doesn't play too big role. Here now, the S mode, here with gears are kept up, and I can just put the shifting lever to the right again. Then we're once again in the normal D driving mode, and then we're back to the normal shifting where you would usually leave this vehicle. So I think good to handle, easy in the steering, but still with a decent feeling, off-road character from steering and especially soft air suspension. Interesting, it's a completely new vehicle, cannot compare it with the predecessor model, and standing out from the competition with this unique character, even though when we see on paper, from the technology pieces and so on, all set in the off-road thing, other competitors have more modern technologies as for suspension, for example, or infotainment, voice input and so on. Yes, but because this one has this distinctive look and the feeling it conveys, it stands more out, also inside the model portfolio from Land Rover, than anything else. And now to our off-road driving mode in medias res. So we pump the air suspension up. We have the off-road gear reduction here as well. So, and when you put in the off-road gear reduction, by the way, then the suspension automatically goes up because the car suspects, oh, this guy probably wants to do some off-road driving. By the way, off-road gear reduction to the normal one is about 3-to-1. So when we are here in the third gear, it would be the first gear in the normal driving. And so that means we have more power at slow speeds here with the off-road gear reduction. And so then it's also easier when you, for example, have a steep uphill here and so on. By the way, when the air suspension is all the way up, you have actually a little bit less comfort. It looks like you have more dampening, but you must think about that you also have less dampening in the other direction. So overall, it's less comfortable to drive with the suspension all the way up. Here now, some big rocks on the ground. You see it's shaking a lot, but the cool thing is here with off-road vehicles with air suspension that it's still somewhat comfortable, although it's a very rough riding. And when you do not have air suspension, this is not always the case. Here I can also put in the camera view. So this is really helpful here in this off-road view, because sometimes I cannot really see what's going on, and then the camera view is definitely helping me. You can also adjust it like which camera perspective you want to have. Of course, for off-road driving, this is at the moment the rear perspective, which is not that helpful. The most helpful one is always the front perspective, because you do not see what's going on there in the front hood and so on. Now there's a nice water pit. That's of course always even more fun looking at it from the outside. Slowly inside. Wading depth of course 90 centimeters, way enough. You can also see the water then here on the camera. And like driving through the water from the exterior is always more spectacular than from intro, because here from driving just it's like, so what? Now we're heading on to a steep downhill. We can play with the hill descent control. You can activate it just with a click of a button, but also when you have the off-road gear reduction set, then it's automatically on. And you change the speed here with the cruise control on the left side of the steering wheel, on the right side of the steering wheel. So I set it now to minus, like the low setting. Here I just basically approach it slowly, and then I let go of the brake, and then I'm not on the brakes yet at all. Hill descent control is ruling everything. 75% downhill. Wow, really cool. And I could also set the speed a little bit higher than when we, for example, not such a steep downhill. And now, for example, this is like a hardened sand area, so it's not that slippery. And at the same time a little bit rougher than as for the holes. But here, for example, I could theoretically set the hill descent control to a little higher speed, and then when just letting it roll, we have a little bit more speed, but it's also not going downhill that much. So you can adjust that. And once again, I have to say, really impressed on how comfortable off-road driving is still with this vehicle. And of course even more capability if you compare it then, for example, to a Discovery. And now to our conclusion for the day with the all-new Land Rover Defender. Comparing old and new doesn't really make too much sense because it's a completely different vehicle. You can rather relate to the other models that Land Rover or Range Rover have to offer. Closest it comes surely to the Discovery, but definitely a more off-roadish Discovery. You see it and you also feel it while driving, even more off-road capable, and also the on-road driving experience feels off-roadish, and that's also the reason why you would go for that vehicle. Approximately like you compare G-Class versus GLE at Mercedes. It just has exterior and from driving feeling this off-road carrier, and also from the interior materials a little bit more rugged. We found that the material mix on the interior could have been made a little bit easier. They are very, just too many different elements and also too many different materials, so they could have kept it a little bit simpler, I think. Good upgrade there with the infotainment system, which is more intuitive than the systems we have seen before. Very impressive in the off-road capabilities, that's for sure. So hardly anything that this car cannot master in off-road driving. Then about the fuel consumption. With the diesel, we could score about like minimum consumption, 7 liters on 1 kilometers, 34 mpg US, 41 mpg UK. And with the big petrol engine, 6-cylinder petrol engine, we could score some 10 liters on 1 kilometers, which would be 23 mpg US and about 28 mpg UK. So about 3 liters difference then between these two engines here in our first test. However, the diesel will have a little bit more advantage when you really hammer these vehicles and the consumptions go up. So weren't the worst results, but there's of course also no fuel consumption wonder with this weight you're carrying around. However, overall a very comfortable vehicle also for longer journeys, because this soft off-road character also is transported into road driving. No real driving dynamics and so on, but that's also not expected. But this soft off-road character also helps you then on longer journeys. You can get a somewhat reasonable one for about 50,000 euros or dollars, depending then on the market, where the 3-door or 5-door is more or less expensive. Usually the 3 doors, of course, less expensive. Then it also depends on the standard equipment. There is some more standard equipment than with other Land Rovers, for example. I have to bear that in mind. However, it's not at all a cheap vehicle. So, said earlier, when you pick the big petrol engine, spec it up a little bit, you can also score some 80k or something. And then it's of course quite expensive. So for having this more rugged feel or look to it, I think it would have been even cooler when it would be positioned price-wise below the Discovery. That would have been like a crush to the market. At these prices, you have to wonder if you take the competition into account, which have some more other new modern things and better combine the comfort and the driving dynamics. So couldn't really say that it is top of the market, but combining this off-road character and also applying to the on-road, that is the unique thing about this vehicle. So that's the conclusion for today. Hope you enjoyed this special episode. Give me your feedback and see you next time.